Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another how to play video, and today we're learning how to play The Calling, a roguelike game designed by G. Wesley Cohn and published by Mere Pursuit. And I do apologize if I mispronounced that name. Before I get started, thank you to the publisher for sponsoring this video. Additionally, I do need to point out that what you see here is still in the prototype phase and is subject to change. Additionally, please make sure you turn your Klingon subtitles, because if things change after this video is completed, that's where you'll find those corrections. Now, what this game is this is a 1 to 4 player adventure running game with some character upgrading and just a smattering of resource management. Your character is going to be racing to the end of this map here, and then the roguelike part is it will then reboot and you'll come back over here, but you will be stronger. All the while, your character will be running from the suit. And the suit is a corrupt government official. Now, to jump in, let's talk about how you set up the game. And the way this video is going to be structured is I'm going to start out by talking about the solo version of the game, because that's where you're going to get most of the rules, and at the end I'll talk about the changes for multiplayer, because at its core this is a very similar game either way, and I think that'll be the easiest for us to digest. Now, to set up the game, obviously you put the game board in the middle, you'll take all the black cubes, and then you'll take a single black cube, which you will then place over here on the round marker, and you'll note that these black cubes are also called scars, and you'll place it on the number 1. Then in the solo game, none of the rest of these black cubes will be used. Then each player will take one of the 4 different character minis, like so. For our example, we'll take this one right here, which is the main character of the story. You will then collect all of the cubes and dice of your chosen color. In this case, I have chosen white. Each player will then take an occupation card, and I'll talk about this in just a moment, a player board, and your double-sided player reference. Here we have the player turn and encounter summary over here, and on the other side we have all of the different abilities. Then you'll take the stack of feat cards, and in the solo game you'll put these to the side. They are only used in multiplayer. Additionally, you have this multiplayer in-game goals. As you can guess, you do not use that in the solo game either. We'll talk about this when we get to the multiplayer section of this video. Finally, you will collect all of the black dice. You can take all the d12s and set them to the side of the board, and the same with all of the d6s, which we'll set right over here next to the board, because we'll be using those every single turn. Then you'll place the suit right here, and you will place your character here at the start line. And now you're set up and you're ready to move into character creation. The way character creation works is you will have 15 points that you can spend across your speed, your defense, and your hit points. You'll also notice there's a space here for emergency kits, a space down here for your XP, and space up here to mark what abilities you've unlocked. However, the first time you start the game, it's going to recommend one of these 3 basic classes. You have the Skyrunner, the Market Inspector, or the Philanthropist. In other words, you have a Speed Runner, and you have a Fighter, and you have an HP tank, as it were. And up here it's going to tell you how you can create a custom character, but we're not going to dig into that in this video. It's clearly outlined in the rulebook. And as you set up your character, you'll look at the stats that you have over here, and you will place them on the board here. First, you'll note you want to have one of the white cubes all the way down on the 0 of all of the different statistics. And then, since for this example I'm playing the Skyrunner, I will put my HP up to 3. I will put my defense up to 3. I'll put my speed up to 9. And my XP and my EK start at 0. Additionally, every character will start with a single ability. And the rulebook tells you what the recommended starting abilities are for the 3 starting classes. And for the Skyrunner, that is Shadow. While for the Market Inspector, that is Awareness, or if you are playing multiplayer, that is Battle Scars. And for the Philanthropist, that will be Hide. Then you'll collect your single d6, and we are ready to start the game. Now, as we can see here, the turn order is laid out for you. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to do your movement roll, which to do that, you will roll a single d6, and you will add your speed value, which, if we recall, as the Skyrunner, my speed started at 9, so I have a total of 14. And what you'll see here is we have the main path here, which is the gray path. You'll also see off to the side we have these smaller paths available as well. And these represent the side alleys. And you'll notice the entrance to all of them are marked with this yellow line here. Now on the side alleys, what you're looking at are these yellow numbers right here. That represents the amount of experience point you'll get if you step on those spots. You'll also notice there's spaces like right here that say EK. That's an emergency kit, and I'll talk about how those work in just a minute. So on your turn, you will be able to start moving. And the rule is, if you start your turn on the main alley and you enter into a side alley, you cannot leave the side alley on that same turn unless you have stepped on one of these yellow marks. So in this case, perhaps I would take my 14 movement and move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 to here, and that would gain me 5 experience points, then 14, 15, and make my way back. Now I'm going to pause here to point out something that you may have noticed on the board, and that are these black dots. What those represent are 5 spaces along the path of the side alleys. So as we look right here, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to that space. And then since there's no other black dot, that actually helps you see that it is less than 5 to get here, as it is only 4. And you'll see those all around the board. Now, if I had had a big enough number, I could have come all the way to here, gotten this, and come all the way back out. Then the next thing that you do is you do your encounter roll, and you'll see the encounter summary over here. What you'll do is you're going to roll a simple d6. However, I'm going to pause here and highlight a couple of the different abilities that you can have during the game. Now, when we started, I pointed out that I had the shadow ability. So since I'm in a side alley at the start of the encounter turn, I can roll my d6. And if I had rolled a 6 or I had rolled a 1, I would gain 1 more experience, and I would not have to make an encounter roll. The other one to note is this ability down here, this flex ability. And again, we're going to talk about how you can get new abilities later on, but I could spend 3 of my experience points to adjust this number up or down by 1. So perhaps I had a 2 and didn't like that encounter. I could then spend 3 to push it up to a 3. I'll also point out now that if you're doing a custom character creation, all of these abilities here you cannot start the game with. Then, depending on what you roll, you will deal with your encounter. So if you rolled a 1, you are faced with a victim and you have a choice. You can help them, which allows you to spend a single EK, which, if you recall, are the emergency kits, and we started the game with none, so if we rolled this we couldn't do it, but if we were later in the game we had some emergency kits, we could spend 1 and then we'd be allowed to move 10 spaces. So that might be something we want to do if we had it, and then we could simply start moving back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then we'd find ourselves back out there on the path. Or we could say we have no time, or we had no emergency kit, and you would lose 3 XP if you had it, and then you move on. Next there is the 2, where which is the river guide sighting. You have a choice. Again, A or B, you can do a boost, which would gain you 1 speed point or 1 defense point on the corresponding track, or you could do a refresh and simply gain 3 HP. And I will point out here that even though we started the game with 3, we're not limited by that. So we could take the refresh action and move up by 3 and have a total of 6 hit points right now, and you can go all the way up to a maximum of 10. Next we have the trap, and you are simply going to lose 2 HP. Period, you have no choice. However, if you are in the main alley, which as a reminder is the light gray here, then you're going to get a reward. And the rewards are going to be, if you did not hit 0 HP, then you would gain the reward. You'll roll 2 dice, and that's how much XP that you're going to get. So in this case, if we were in the main alley and we survived, I would roll the 2, and I would gain 4 XP. It's important to note that if you are in the side alley, you get no reward. Now, I'm briefly going to talk about how you can have 0 HP and not be out of the game. So in the calling, there is one way to lose the game, and that is have 0 hit points. However, that is what the emergency kits are also for. So in this case, let's say I only had 2 and I hit the trap and I went to 0. I do have an emergency kit. So at this point I can use my emergency kit, which would technically stop me from actually hitting 0. I would go back up to 3 and then I would gain 3 XP for it. Then next we have a horde encounter. And you have a choice. Again, you can either defend or you can retreat. Though you cannot retreat if you are not in the main alley. And once again, the reminder here, the main alley are the light gray spaces, in which case you would then go back 3 spaces if you were in the main alley and wanted to retreat. However, if that would take you back past the start line, that option is not available to you. Or you can defend against the attack. And so what will happen then is you will roll your defense die plus whatever the total is of your defense, which again, as a reminder, we started the game with 3 defense. So I'll roll that, and I have a total of 5. Then depending on the round, you will roll horde dice. And as we can see right here at the bottom of the chart, round 1 you roll 1, round 2 you roll 2, then 4, then 8, and then 8 again at the end, but you're going to multiply it by 2. But for our example, pretend we're in the first round, so I would roll the single die, and it is a 4. My 5 equals or beats theirs, so then since I'm in the main alley, I would get a reward. Again, I would not get a reward if I was in the side alley. And my reward would be whatever number was rolled on the horde die, in this case 4 XP. So in other words, if in the second round I defended against an attack like this, I would gain 15 XP for that. Now let's just say that I was not successful in defending, and they had rolled a 6. If we remember, I had 2 plus my defense value of 3, so my total was 5, so I lost by 1. I would lose the difference between their attack and my defense, meaning I would lose 1 HP. The next thing that you do is you get to take your level up actions, and this is where you get to spend the XP that you've been earning, and as a reminder, you'll gain XP from stepping on the yellow numbers, from winning fights against the horde while you're on the main alley, or surviving traps, again, while you're in the main alley. And there may be some abilities that give you XP. For example, the shadow ability, if I had rolled a 1 or a 6, I would have gained 1 XP for that. Now, as we look at the level up options, we have this here on the chart, and you'll notice you can do 3 separate purchases each turn. Anytime you get any of these, it counts as a separate purchase. You can do a simple rest, which is spend 1 XP to heal 1 point of health. You can do an upgrade, which is you spend 3, and you can upgrade your defense, or you can upgrade your speed. So in this case, I go from 9 down to 10, and I would mark that. C is something that is only available in the multiplayer game, and this will be notated with an asterisk right here in the final version of the game. I'll talk about how Dream works at the end of this video. Then you can go shopping, which would spend 7 XP. So we'll just pretend that we were right here. So I could spend 7, like so, and then get an emergency kit. Next, you can do a grow ability, which is for spending 10 XP, you can gain 1 new ability. And the abilities that you can gain are all of the abilities up here, which again are on the backside of your player aid. And as a reminder, after the first turn, you can buy these abilities down here. One that I will highlight right now is the adrenaline ability, which if you've purchased, you'll then get a second die every time you do your movement at the beginning of the turn. I'll also point out, if you take a look, that the adrenaline you can get 2 dice for, same with insight and toughness over here. Now I'm not going to go into what all the different abilities do, as they are relatively straightforward on the ability guide. And I will point out that there's also this 4 scars option here to gain a new ability that is only available in the multiplayer game. And the same goes for the Riverborn ability down here at the bottom, so I'll explain those when I get to that part of the video. Then the next thing that will happen is the suit will move. And the suit has the same number of dice as is equal to the round. So it starts the game with 1 die. I'll also point out that in the solo game, in the introductory game, the suit does not move on the first turn. However, after that, it will always do so. Though in the full game, you do move the suit in the very first turn. And you simply roll a d6, and it will move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's always going to follow the path. You'll notice right here there is a plus die, and so when the suit gets to that point, then it will get another die for the rest of that round, which means each time through the path, it will gain 1 more die until the end of the game when it has 5 dice. And the danger of the suit is twofold. One, if the suit would ever catch you landing on the same space as you are, your hit points will immediately go to 0, and the only way you can save yourself is with an emergency kit. The other danger is, if you find yourself in a side alley, like I am right here, if the suit ever reaches the entrance to that alley, you get pulled out of the alley and placed directly in front of the suit, and again, your hit points will go to 0 unless you have an emergency kit that can save you. Then, that would mark the end of the round, and you would start again, which again means rolling your die, adding your speed, and then moving and either going into the alley to gain XP and emergency kits, or simply making your way to the end. Now, when you get to the end, a few things are going to happen. First, you'll have 1 more chance to do a level up. Then, the round token will skip forward, and you will find yourself teleported back to the front, as will the suit, and you get to start the round again. As a reminder, though, the suit will now start with 2 dice. When they reach here, they would then go up to 3, and the horde will now roll 2 dice instead of 1. Then you'll go through the game all the way until you've gotten through 5 rounds. Though you do have the option of stopping at any point prior to that and scoring right away, though the intent is to play all 5 rounds. When you get to the end of the 5 rounds, in the solo game you will have an interesting choice to make. However, that dips into spoiler territory, which I will not get into, but just understand that there will be some interesting choices that you get to make at that point. Though, in general, you will end the game and you'll do your scoring then. Then at the end of the game, you'll make note of however much XP that you have left over, and in other words, did not spend, and whatever your rank is. And your rank, as you can see here, is based on these various descriptors. You are a student if your HP hits 0 and you fail to escape around defeat, but defeat is temporary and failure leads to victory. And you'll see the other descriptors for the rank here. The goal is eventually to be a level 10 Sky Captain. To play through the full campaign idea, you're going to actually play through 4 different games, with the goal being to get all 4 of the different ranks and finish with a certain amount of XP total. Now, I mentioned having different ranks, and so then those total ranks are going to be over here, which is at the end of the 4 games, if you've managed to get 1,000 plus XP left over, you'll be level 10. And if you accomplished all the other ranks, then you would be a Sky Captain. And that's how the solo game works. The multiplayer game is mostly the same with a few key differences. The first one being, of course, there are multiple characters out there, but every turn is played simultaneously. If there is ever a moment in which one player feels like they want to wait and see what another player does first, then it's always done in the order of the highest speed goes first, followed by the next highest speed. But for the most part, you can play this simultaneously. So both players will be moving through, going off into the side alleys, and trying to avoid the suit. One key difference is, if the suit would ever pass an alley where there's one player, it will immediately stop there. So in this case, if the suit was right here, and we rolled a 5, it would actually stop right here, pulling this character out right here, and it would have to use an EK not to be defeated. However, in that case, hitting 0 does not actually defeat you. You would simply place one of these scar tokens onto your player board, and then you would reset at 1 health. Though, there are some abilities like the Battle Scars ability that would change what you get reset to. The next difference comes with the purchasing. At the beginning of the multiplayer game, each player receives 3 feats, of which they have to keep at least 1. And all of these are different goals you have to accomplish by the end of the game. For example, right here, minimum of 9 hit points. If I had at least 9 hit points at the end of the game, like so, I would gain 1 more point. And all of them are uniquely different. In the multiplayer game, you're also to, in the level up portion of the game, spend 5 XP, so we'll pretend that we were here, to draw 2 more, and then keep 1. And the final one is the Riverborn. And this is only available if you have at least 10 movement, or speed, 10 defense, and at least 5 HP. If you're going to do that, you'll then receive the Riverborn goal. And I'll talk about goals in just a minute, but then you would reset your health, your speed, and your defense all back to 1. Now, in order to understand the goals, let's talk about in-game for multiplayer. When you're playing multiplayer, the idea is that you're only going to play for 2 rounds. However, you do have the option to play for more if you want, but the game is designed to only play for 2 rounds. And there are 2 different ways that you can decide who the winner is at the end of the game, and see how much XP you have left over, or you can use the multiplayer end goals. And you'll note that goals can go to multiple players, and you place your cubes as they happen. So I mentioned the Riverborn goal. You could place that right over here, and you have 5 points at the end of the game. You'll notice you're going to gain 1 point for every feat that you've accomplished, and you lose a point for every feat that you fail. If you have the most HP at the end of the game, you'll gain a point. The most defense, the most speed, the most emergency kits, the first person to end round 1, or the first person to end round 2 will also gain points. I'll also point out over here that you're going to lose 1 point for every skull. That, of course, is in direct contrast with this War Stories, which is whoever has the most scars will gain 4 points. One does not cancel the other out. So in other words, if I finish the game 5 scars, and that was the most, I would have a net of -1. I'd lose 5 for having 5 scars, but then I would gain 4 points for having the War Stories. So there you have it, folks. That's how you play The Calling. As I said before, if you're interested in my thoughts on this game, you can check out my preview video, which is linked down in the description. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.